Hi, this is Elliot Fishman, and welcome to our weekly Facebook Live. And this is our first one for 2021. It's hard to imagine what a crazy week it's been just the first year, and I will not be going into all the madness in the Capitol yesterday. Hopefully, it's a lesson for everybody, and hopefully things will go forward from there. But we won't go into that. But what I was going to speak about this week, and this is because Lily asked me to do this one. If you look at CT as Us, if you look at the website or any of our lecture apps, you'll see that every couple of years I'm asked to give a talk about the future of radiology. So one of the talks I think I gave in 2010, and there was one in 2013 where I said, where would radiology be in 2020? So obviously, I did not predict COVID. I just almost thought about it, but I didn't. People talk about black swans, events that occur that you never thought possible. Keith Grossman, who's our speaker next week on our speaker series, who's the head of Time magazine and everything Time, a couple of years ago when he spoke about black swans. And so it was very clear that unexpected things can happen and how do you adjust to them. And he's going to speak, and I spoke to him today. We were just going over his talk a little bit about many of the changes that Time had to do to adjust. But I'm not going to go into that and how we've adjusted because of COVID. I'm just going to look back at the predictions we made for 2021. Okay. Now, Lily made the list, so I did not go. Lily looked at my talk and picked out. I'm looking at about 10 things. So I'm just going to read them to you. We can post this if you want us to. So here's the things, and I will comment about how good we did or we didn't do. So the first one, by 2020, the scan speed and temporal resolution of CT will approach classic angiography. And I think 100% correct. Right now, CTA, fast contrast injection, high spatial resolution scanners, whether it's GI bleed or hemorrhage or aneurysms, CT has replaced non-invasive invasive angiography. And if you think about a GI bleed, no one gets an angiogram unless the CT is positive. So that has 100% become true. Okay? I'm good on that one. Second one, by 2020, issues with radiation dose for CT will be solved or less of an issue. And I think that one we're right about also. Radiation dose is still an issue. Radiation dose will always be an issue. But I think with the new scanners, with better understanding, with automatic KVP and MAS, with new detectors, some of the work being done with photon counting potentially will make an impact. Radiation dose is less an issue. You remember going back, I won't say 2013, a little before then, where every patient was scared of getting a scan, where there'd be articles in the newspaper how radiologists were killing people by doing CTs and all sorts of things. That you haven't seen in a long time. The madness around pediatrics, you haven't seen in a long time. So I think we've done a good job. We always could do better. And we need to make certain that in every patient, we're always doing the lowest dose possible. Also, in that term, the lowest dose possible, I need to reframe that, because remember, people were doing very low dose studies and I couldn't read them. The studies were so noisy and so grainy, it was impossible to read. So we talk about the lowest dose possible to get a great study. And I always made the point, which I still make, that the biggest reason for increasing dose is doing a study a second time. If you do the study the first time correctly, you're going to minimize dose. Okay, the next things. The scan is introduced in RSNA 2020 will have new, more efficient detector material, detector arrays that require less x-rays to acquire data, pre and post processing algorithms that produce high quality images with minimal radiation dose, and optimal scan protocols for maximum dose reduction will be defined by the scanner and not by the radiologist and technologist. And yes, we were not at RSNA, but if you looked online, if you read the articles the past year, and even if you looked at RSNA 2019, all the manufacturers from Siemens to GE to Philips have new detector material. Their detector arrays require less energy to acquire data. The post-processing algorithms, think about everything related to dual energy, and each of the manufacturers has their own terminology for post-processing algorithms, but each of them really has increased the quality of the images while at the same time decreasing the radiation dose. And more of this is being generated by the scanner and not by the technologist, because we also know that technologists, as like radiologists, can make mistakes. People aren't as well trained perhaps, and it's tricky in a busy practice. The computer needs to make the decisions for you. And if I'm predicting 2025 or 2030, it'll even be more so, because AI is going to determine the optimal dose for each patient. So it's more going to be that way as well. Okay, then I put down my usual thing, diffusion of 3D imaging, knowing that I'm going to say it, but it never happens. And 3D imaging has never been better. I never heard of cinematic rendering in 2013, but cinematic rendering is front and center. The oncologists, the surgeons, the urologists, or even the radiologists love cinematic rendering. But again, because of poor reimbursement, because of everyone worrying about RVUs for FTE, despite the fact the ACR says quality over quantity, we're still in a quantity world because we measure everything by quantity, for better or worse. But 3D imaging has gotten better. There's new algorithms. I think you're going to see better algorithms. We're working on all sorts of new algorithms and ways of doing it. The ability to use the HoloLens by Microsoft to look at cinematic rendering is going to be big. So I think there's lots and lots of things that are happening in the 3D world. So I'm saying we were correct there as well. Dual energy and perfusion imaging will become mainstream. I think that also is becoming more and more true. We use a lot of dual energy. Some sites like NYU, Alec Megabo does dual energy on every patient. We don't. Perfusion imaging, particularly for cardiac, particularly for brain, is becoming mainstream. That's how we evaluate stroke patients. So those technologies improvements, technological improvements really are driving CT and are something we are doing routinely now. So we were there as well. Better lesion characterization, texture mapping, staging, perfusion. Absolutely. Think of everything with cinematic and texture mapping. Think of radiomics. We're spending much more time looking at what's in the image than what we see just by looking. We know that with radiomics we can predict the presence of tumor, how patients will respond to chemotherapy, what the outcomes would be. We begin to realize that there's so much data inherent in CT, and that's only becoming more and more obvious with deep learning and AI. So we were right there, and I'm going to predict that again going forward. The next one I like, who will do more for radiology, GE, Siemens, and Toshiba, or Google, Intel, and Apple? Well, it's easy, Google, Intel, and Apple. Intel has had a few tough years, but still is doing great. Google is everything with search and knowledge and information. Apple is everything with computers and chips now, whether it's the iPad or the iPhone or laptops. And the one thing I left out there, because I only put 3 names, was NVIDIA. NVIDIA is making all the chips that make everything possible. The fact that they moved from that gaming area, NVIDIA, in 2013 the stock price was probably 10, now it's 530 or 540. And they have just done unbelievable work. Jensen Huang, who's the head of NVIDIA, CEO and founder, he is the 3rd highest ranked person in Fortune magazine for CEO. Just announced this past week. Congratulations, Jensen. But it's not a big deal because he was number 1 2 years ago. He was number 3 3 years ago. And then Keith Grossman, head of Time, reminded us that Jensen was on the cover of Wired in 2002 when Keith was one of the senior people at Wired. So Jensen has had an amazing run, and I got a feeling he's just getting started. But again, ask me to go forward 2025. Google, NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, they are the ones that are going to change radiology. Siemens and GE will have better scanners. Toshiba doesn't even exist anymore. But GE and Siemens are doing more and more. But I'm telling you, the other companies are really driving. Hopefully GE and Siemens will even contribute more, but you got my money on Google, Apple, NVIDIA. Oh, by the way, if you would have invested, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, $1 in each of those stocks back then probably each of those stocks is probably 10 to 50 times higher than it was in 2013. That says a lot. Data storage will be in the cloud. HIPAA may prevent this. Damn right. I was right on both of these. Data storage more and more is in the cloud. Everything is going into the cloud. But the HIPAA regulations, the concern for HIPAA, they've not been able to get their act together, and that is one of the things that's slowing us down in research. Good article in JACR, controversy issue January 2021 about this from Tessa Cook from Penn. But I don't think we are where we need to be. HIPAA is still a problem. We are concerned about HIPAA, and rightly so. We need confidentiality, but we need to have data in the cloud. We need to have data safe, easily accessible. Patients can't be held hostage to where their data is. 30 years from now, you may want that CT scan that was thrown away, or you don't know where it was because you can't remember what hospital you had it in. Apple is pushing for individual data storage, where you in the Apple cloud will have all your CTs, all your EKGs, anything you do, so that for the rest of the life, for the rest of your life, whether in Baltimore, California, or Europe, or anywhere in between, your information is always with you, and at some point it may indeed save your life. By the way, you can ask me questions. I see we have some people, Essam Alamin from the Sudan, hi in the Sudan, and Shibo Drias, I hope I didn't pronounce the name, from Algeria. So we have a lot of people from far away, and we welcome them as always. What else? Number 8, access to data will be on high bandwidth secure lines and devices such as the iPhone and iPad will be in 5G territory. I didn't even know I knew what 5G was in 2013. 5G is here now. It's coming full force. You're going to see a lot more of it mid to late year. I think 5G has been slowed down a little bit by the whole COVID issues, but 5G is everything. It's going to allow all of the image processing, all of the network transfers, everything to be faster, more secure, and safer. And again, I said we're going to be using devices like the iPhone and iPad, and we do. You can do a 3D processing on an iPad now. You can look at all of your, no one subscribes to journals anymore. All the information's on the iPad. You can look at your patient records on the iPad. You can do everything on the iPad and iPhone, and it's only beginning. So I would pick this again for 2025. iPhone, iPad, and 5G is going to be mainstream. You won't even be saying 5G because you'll be thinking about 6G at that point. Reading CT will be more accessible remotely on mobile and iPad. Again, we were right, because mobile, we are looking at CTs on iPad and iPhone. We helped develop something called a web viewer. You can look at everything with the same accuracy. But also in this COVID era, where 70% of radiologists are working from home, no longer is everybody at work. And because of the ability to read from home, we were safer. We spread people around. We did teaching and training, did everything remotely. So again, we were amazingly correct on that. And the last one is textbooks, CME, etc. will all be moving online. And even pre-COVID, this has been true. Textbooks, you haven't seen textbooks in a while. Mike Federle and the Amisis people wrote the last good group of textbooks. You used to have at your rent a course, you'd have the 3 book dealers. Now there's no book dealers, barely any at RSNA. Everything, all the textbooks are virtual textbooks, which is a good thing. And people read them on their iPad or other mobile device. CME, obviously COVID for the most part has stopped CME in person. We love CME in person. I've missed 20 meetings in the last 10 months that I could have gone to. And I like giving lectures live. It's kind of sort of a lot of fun doing this on Facebook Live because I can reach a lot of people very quickly. But there's something about being in a meeting, listening to other speakers, being in a room, having people come up to you before or after, discussing things. All of those things become very, very important. But here we're saying it's moving online, it's online. One of the things post-COVID, I don't know how successful meetings in person are going to be. People are going to watch their finances, their time away. That was a challenge already. People were going more and more to CME online and to textbooks online. And I think that's accelerated in the COVID era. How much will go back? I think somewhat it'll go back a bit, but I don't think you're going to see a 60,000 person RSNA ever again. And I think a lot of the smaller societies and smaller meetings are just going to have a struggle coming back. I think the finances are going to be bad. I think it's going to be tough. So those are the things I thought of in 2013 when I gave that talk. So I guess I should give another talk, and I gave a talk maybe last year about 2025. There's a talk on CT is Us, surely on our app about Radiology 2025. So I have kind of addressed that. But I think one of the things we look at is even with CT is Us, the website, the Facebook page, the Instagram page, the Pinterest page, the Twitter page, the LinkedIn page, we are constantly looking at how things change and how we need to change. We need to always be changing our processes. People like Alejandro Blanco, who's in my lab, or John Biachino, who's in CT, and he's in the Virag, our cancer center today. Everyone wants to know what's happening that's new. How do they improve their practice? What do they need to learn, and how do they learn it? Even Lydiana, who's saying hi from Palo Alto. Hey, Lydiana, California. Everyone knows that the world is changing. I think COVID has made it clear how fast things can change. I think it's an incredible opportunity. So as we enter this new year, 2021, and as we ignore all of the craziness going on everywhere, we're just looking at how we can do things better. We want your suggestions. We always ask for that. We're redoing some of our apps with new content, but also new interfaces to try to meet people's expectations and needs even more. We want your thoughts about what I should be doing on these Facebook Lives. I did a couple quizzes. I did one where I was wearing my HoloLens and looking like Darth Vader for my grandchildren. There are a lot of things we can do, and we really need your support and your wisdom where we should take the website. So that part's very exciting, and we look forward to really great things in 2021. So I'll stop there. If anyone has any questions, it's a great time to ask. But if not, let me just again wish everybody a happy and healthy new year. We're 5 days, no, we're actually January 7th. We're 7 days into the new year. And I did get my COVID vaccine 2 days ago. I got the Pfizer vaccine on the 5th. If you can get your vaccine, do it. I know some people are a little bit scared. I'm fine. I think maybe my facial hair grow faster or something. I had to shave twice in a row. But except for that, the vaccine has been thank goodness, it's been a non-event. I have to go back for a vaccine number 2 21 days later, so between 17 and 22 days. So I think I'm back in 2.5 weeks. So that'll be good. And I think the startup of the vaccine injections everywhere from hospitals on down has been slower than we wanted. Remember, they wanted to do 20 million people by January 1. They ended up doing about 2.5 million. But I think things are picking up steam now. You need to be better organized. You need to know how to do the process. I did it at Hopkins the other day. It was very, very well organized, so they deserve credit for that. But again, we need to get the vaccine out to everybody, whether they're young or old. We just need to produce vaccine and get it out there. And that's the only way we are really going to end this basic limited access of people. And we wish all of our colleagues, particularly places like in LA, where the vaccine numbers are where the disease numbers are super high, and people are working like crazy trying to take care of our patients. We wish them to be safe and wish them only the best. And we wish all of you, whether you're in Baltimore or Palo Alto or the Sudan or in Algeria, we wish you only the best and happy and healthy for the coming year. And we promise we'll be back in 5 years looking at our predictions that we made this year and see how well we did. And with that, have a great day.